She was just a quiet waitress until one night she sat at the piano and played a song that silenced the elite and awakened the world. Emma worked at one of the most exclusive country clubs in the city. The place was known for its wealthy members, fancy dinners, and quiet, elegant atmosphere. It wasn't the kind of place where people asked your name if you worked there. Most of the wait staff were told to stay invisible, serve quickly, and never speak unless spoken to. Emma followed the rules. She was polite, quiet, and always careful. She didn't talk much, but she listened. She remembered people's favorite drinks, who liked lemon in their tea, who didn't want ice in their water. Most members treated her like part of the background. Some gave her small nods. Some never looked her in the eyes. It bothered her. Emma wasn't just another waitress, even though that's all people saw. Behind her quiet smile and simple black uniform was a story no one at the club knew. A story that once began with dreams, music, and a future that felt full of hope. Years ago, Emma had been one of the top students at a well-known music academy. Her passion was the piano. She didn't just play it, she lived through it. Her fingers danced on the keys like they had minds of their own. Her teachers called her a prodigy. She won small competitions, and music was her life. Every day she practiced for hours, dreaming of big concerts, bright lights, standing ovations. But life has a way of changing paths without warning. When Emma was 19, her father passed away suddenly. Her mother fell into depression and stopped working. Emma's younger brother, Luke, was only 10 at the time and needed care. Bills piled up. Rent was due. There was no time for piano anymore. Emma had to leave school and take any job she could find. For the next few years, she worked in cafes, restaurants, and finally landed a job at the elite country club. They paid better, and the tips helped her keep food on the table for her family, even though her hands now carried trays instead of gliding over piano keys. Emma never let go of music completely. Every night after work, when the city quieted down and Luke was asleep, she would sit at her second-hand keyboard. The keys were chipped, and one note didn't work, but it was all she had. She played for herself. She played to feel alive. In that small room, with peeling wallpaper and a flickering light bulb, her fingers remembered everything they once knew. Sometimes she cried while playing. Sometimes she smiled. But always the music was her secret comfort. A world she could step into where no one judged her, and no one expected her to be anything but herself. At the club, she moved silently between tables, watching people live lives she could barely imagine. Fancy cars lined the parking lot. Women wore designer dresses. Men discussed investments and vacations in Europe. Emma served them with grace. No one knew that while she poured wine or cleared plates, pieces of music played in her mind. Classical. Notes swirled in her thoughts as she walked across the marble floors. She would sometimes pause near the grand piano in the ballroom and feel a strange longing, as if the instrument itself was calling out to her, but she never touched it. It felt forbidden, like a part of her past she wasn't allowed to reach. For any more, one guest in particular caught her attention over time, Mr. Langford. He was an older man, always in a tailored suit, quiet but observant. He was known in the music world as a powerful critic. His reviews could make or break careers. Some musicians feared him. Others chased his approval like it was gold. Emma noticed how people treated him with careful respect, always trying to impress him. He barely spoke to her, except for an occasional nod when she brought him his usual black coffee. No sugar. Emma didn't think Mr. Langford even knew she existed beyond being the coffee girl, and she was okay with that.
After
all, what could a man like him possibly think of a waitress who had given up her dreams long ago? But deep down, Emma still had a tiny hope buried under layers of tiredness and duty. She hoped that one day, somehow, someone would hear her play again. She didn't want fame. She didn't want fortune. She just wanted to be seen not as a servant, but as someone with something beautiful to give. That hope kept her going, even when she worked double shifts or came home too tired to eat. One night, as Emma closed up the staff break room, she heard faint music from the ballroom. Someone had left the piano open, and the soft sound of fingers pressing the keys filled the air. It wasn't professional. It was hesitant, unsure. A guest was trying to play a simple tune, but kept getting it wrong. Emma stood in the shadows and listened. Her hands ached to correct the notes, to guide the melody. But she said nothing. When the guest gave up and left, she quietly entered the ballroom. The grand piano sat under a soft spotlight, waiting in silence. She looked around to make sure no one was watching. Then she sat down. Her fingers hovered above the keys, shaking slightly. It had been years since she played a real piano. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Then, slowly, she began to play. The sound was rich and clear, filling the large room with emotion. She played Chopin, one of her favorites. The notes flowed out of her like water from a hidden spring. For those few minutes, she forgot about work, about bills, about the world outside. It was just her and the music. She didn't know that Mr. Langford had quietly returned to the ballroom, standing just outside the door. He listened, eyebrows raised, surprised by the emotion in every note. But when she finished and turned to leave, he stepped away, unseen. The next day, nothing seemed different. Emma returned to work as usual. She served lunch, filled glasses, and smiled politely. No one mentioned the piano. No one acted like they had heard anything. So, she assumed she was still invisible, but something had changed. Even if she didn't realize it yet, Mr. Langford had started asking about the staff. He quietly inquired about the girl who served him coffee. The manager, a sharp woman named Denise, told him Emma's name and background, at least what she knew. That Emma was reliable, quiet, and had been with them for over 2 years. Mr. Langford didn't say much, but he made a note in his journal. There's more to that girl than they see. Meanwhile, Emma continued her routine. She didn't know that her moment at the piano had stirred something. That her simple act of sitting down and playing late at night had created a quiet ripple. Life was about to offer her another chance, but she didn't expect it. She didn't chase it. She just held on to that tiny bit of hope and kept playing alone in the dark, waiting for the world to listen. The sky was glowing orange as the sun began to set behind the tall buildings, painting the city with warm colors. Inside the country club, things were busier than usual. The staff was rushing around, preparing for one of the biggest events of the year, a grand charity gala. This event wasn't like the usual dinners or lunches. It was something much more special. Wealthy guests from all over the city had been invited. Some of them were celebrities, some were judges, and many were powerful business people. The ballroom was decorated with glittering lights, golden curtains, and crystal chandeliers. It looked like something out of a royal movie. Everything had to be perfect. Emma was in the middle of it all, dressed in her usual black uniform. Her hair was neatly tied back, and she moved quickly from one table to another, helping with the setup. She had been working at the club for over 2 years, and even though she had done many events before, this one felt different. There was a strange energy in the air, nervous, exciting, intense. That night, a famous pianist was supposed to perform. His name was Sebastian Cole, and he was known around the world. People paid hundreds of dollars just to hear him play. It was a big deal to have him at the club. Everyone was talking about it. Many guests were attending only because they wanted to see him perform live. But then, something unexpected happened. Just an hour before the event started, the club manager Denise received a call. Her face changed as she listened, and when she hung up, her hands were shaking slightly. She called a quick meeting with the senior staff. Emma stood nearby, curious. Denise looked at everyone and said, "Sebastian Cole has canceled. He's sick. He won't be coming tonight." The room went silent. Everyone stared at her in shock. No one knew what to say. Denise looked extremely worried. "We have 100 VIP guests arriving soon," she said. "They're expecting a world-class piano performance. We need a solution fast." Suggestions started flying around the room. Some said they could play a recording of one of Sebastian's concerts. Others said to skip the performance and make up for it with a longer dinner. But none of the ideas felt good enough. People were expecting magic, and playing a recording just didn't seem right. Then, one of the younger servers, Jack, spoke up. He looked at Emma and said with a small grin, "Well, what about her? Emma plays piano, doesn't she?" The room turned to stare at Emma. She froze. Her heart started pounding. What? No, I mean, yes, I used to, but not like that, she stammered. She didn't expect this. She had never told anyone at work about her past. Maybe Jack had seen her play that one time in the ballroom. Late at night, Denise raised an eyebrow. You play? Emma nodded slowly. Yes, I studied it a long time ago. One of the other servers laughed. She's a waitress, not a concert pianist. This isn't a school recital. Some guests were already arriving, walking in with fancy gowns and expensive shoes. The clock was ticking. Denise didn't know what to do. She looked at Emma again. Can you play something? Anything? Just a quick test? Emma felt the weight of every eye in the room. She wanted to run. She wanted to disappear. But something inside her said, this could be your only chance. Her hands were shaking, but she nodded. I'll try. Walked toward the grand piano, standing quietly in the corner of the ballroom. It looked huge and shiny under the lights, like a sleeping dragon. She sat down slowly. The bench felt cold beneath her. She placed her fingers on the keys, closed her eyes, and took a deep breath. Then she began to play. The sound that came out of the piano was soft at first, like a whisper. Then it grew, filling the space with warmth and emotion. Her hands moved, smoothly, confidently. The notes rose and fell like waves, telling a story without words. The staff members stopped what they were doing and stared. Even the ones who had laughed earlier were now quiet. Denise watched, her mouth slightly open. Emma played a piece called River Flows in You, a beautiful, emotional song she had practiced hundreds of times in her small apartment. When she finished, no one clapped. They were too stunned to move. Finally, Denise cleared her throat. Was incredible. Jack whispered, told you. Emma looked down, her cheeks red. I'm not a professional. I haven't performed in years. But you just did, Denise said. And it was perfect. The decision was made. Emma would perform at the gala. She didn't have a choice anymore. The staff quickly told her to go home, change into something formal, and come back in an hour. Emma rushed to her apartment, heart pounding the whole time. She only owned one nice dress, a navy blue one she had bought on sale for a cousin's wedding. She fixed her hair, put on light makeup, and tried to stop shaking. Her brother Luke looked at her, surprised. Why are you dressed like that? She smiled nervously. I'm playing at the club tonight, piano. His eyes widened. For real? Emma nodded. Wish me luck. Back at the club, guests had taken their seats. The ballroom glowed with soft light, and music played softly from the speakers. The host went up to the microphone and announced that due to an emergency, the original performer couldn't make it. But we have a surprise for you tonight, he said. A hidden talent among us. Please welcome Emma Hale. For a second, there was silence. People looked at each other, confused. A few whispered, who? Then Emma stepped onto the stage. She didn't walk like a star. She walked like a girl who was scared out of her mind, but had something to prove. Her hands trembled slightly as she sat at the piano. She looked out at the crowd rows of expensive dresses, sharp suits, and curious eyes. She could feel the pressure. One wrong note, and they'd laugh. They'd roll their eyes, and see her as a silly girl trying to do something she wasn't made for. But she took a deep breath and began to play. This time, the music came out even stronger than before. She played a piece called Clair de Lune by Debussy. Soft and dreamy, like moonlight. The room changed. Guests stopped eating. Conversations died down. Heads turned toward the stage. The music wrapped around them like magic, making time stand. Still, people who didn't know her name now leaned forward in their seats, eyes wide. The rich, powerful, and important, all of them were caught in her spell. One woman wiped tears from her eyes. A man who had been loudly talking earlier now sat with his hands folded, completely silent. Emma played from her heart. Every note carried years of pain, hope, loss, and love. She didn't just perform, she opened her soul. When the final note faded into the air, the room was silent for a few seconds. Then the applause began. It started slow, like people were still in shock. Then it grew louder, stronger, until the entire ballroom was on its feet. People clapped, whistled, cheered.
Wow.
Emma stood up, unsure of what to do. She had never seen so many people looking at her with admiration. Some were even crying. She looked down at the piano, then back at the crowd, still in disbelief. Mr. Langford, sitting near the front, stood and clapped along with everyone else. But his face was different. He wasn't just surprised, he was impressed, genuinely moved. He leaned toward Denise and asked, "Where did you find her?" Denise smiled proudly. "She's been serving your coffee for 2 years." Mr. Langford shook his head slowly. "She's not a waitress. She's an artist." That night, Emma's life changed without her realizing it. She didn't know that some guests had recorded her performance, that those videos would soon be posted online, that people would start asking, "Who is this mysterious piano girl?" She didn't know that Mr. Langford had already written her name in his notebook, or that by tomorrow, offers would start coming in, invites to perform. Interviews, scholarships. All Emma knew was that she had done something brave. She had taken a chance, stepped out of the shadows, and reminded herself and the world of who she truly was. Not just a waitress, not just a girl in a uniform, but someone who had something beautiful to share. And for the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to believe. This might only be the beginning. The ballroom was still echoing with applause when Emma quietly stepped off the stage. Her heart was beating so fast that she could barely breathe. She had never expected to receive such a strong reaction. For a few seconds after her performance, there had been complete silence, as if the crowd was frozen in awe. And then suddenly, the sound of clapping had filled the room, louder and louder, until the whole place stood up for her. People she had served for years were now cheering for her. It felt like a dream she never dared to have. She returned backstage, her hands still slightly trembling. One of the staff members handed her a glass of water and smiled wide. "It was amazing, Emma. You made everyone stop breathing for a while." She managed a small smile in return, but inside she was still overwhelmed. Her mind couldn't catch up with what had just happened. Back in the ballroom, conversations had changed. No one was talking about the missing celebrity pianist anymore. Everyone was talking about her. Some called her a hidden treasure. Others were confused, wondering how someone like her, a waitress, could play like a master. Even people who had never paid her any attention were now asking questions. Has she always worked here? Did she really study music? Is she not performing on big stages? Mr. Langford, the famous music critic, had remained silent during the performance, but after it ended, he stayed deep in thought. His eyes were sharp, focused, and curious. He had attended hundreds of performances, reviewed countless artists, and listened to some of the world's most skilled pianists. But what he heard from Emma had something more. It wasn't just about skill. It was about soul. Every note she played carried deep emotions, something that couldn't be taught in any academy. He knew talent when he saw it, but what Emma had was rare, genuine, raw, and powerful. After the gala ended, many guests gathered around to speak to her. Some wanted to know her story, others wanted to shake her hand, and a few asked if she taught piano lessons. Emma was polite, but still shy. She wasn't used to this kind of attention. All her life, she had blended into the background. For the first time, people were truly seeing her. A well-dressed woman stepped forward and said, "I'd have a daughter who wants to learn piano. Would you consider giving lessons?" Another man asked, "Do you have any recordings? I'd like to buy them." Emma didn't know how to answer. She had never even recorded herself. She had no social media accounts, no videos, nothing to show. She had lived quietly with her music hidden in her apartment walls. But that was about to change. Later that night, as she walked home under the stars, Emma felt both excitement and fear. Excitement because something amazing had started. Fear because she didn't know what would come next. Her life had always been simple: work, home, taking care of her brother. Now people were looking at her differently, expecting things, wanting more. Could she live up to it? Did she even belong in that world? When she got home, her younger brother Luke was waiting. by the door with wide eyes. He had seen the performance through a video someone posted online. "Emma," he shouted, "you're famous. You're everywhere." She laughed. "Don't be silly, I'm not kidding," he said, holding out his phone. "Look." The video had already gained thousands of views in just a few hours. People were commenting, sharing, and calling her performance magical. Some viewers even guessed who she was, and others were calling her the piano waitress. Emma sat down slowly, staring at the screen. It felt unreal. In her heart, she had always believed she had something special. But she had buried that part of herself for so long, she almost forgot how strong it was. The next morning, Emma's phone started ringing. At first, she thought it was the club calling her in for an early shift. But it wasn't. The first call was from a local radio station that wanted to interview her. Then another call came from a music school offering her a chance to visit and speak with their students. The biggest surprise came when Mr. Langford himself called. Had gotten her number from the club. He spoke in his calm, deep voice. "Hallie, I would like to meet you for coffee. Nothing formal, just a conversation between two people who love music." Emma was stunned. Mr. Langford, the same man who never spoke more than 2 words to her. Now he wanted to meet her. She agreed, though her hands trembled as she said yes. They met at a small cafe the next day. He wore a gray suit and carried a leather notebook. Emma arrived in a simple dress, still not used to being seen as anything more than a server. But Mr. Langford didn't treat her like a waitress. He listened carefully to everything she said, asking about her music journey, her family, why she stopped playing. She told him about her father's death, her mother's depression, and how she had to take care of her little brother. She explained how she gave up her dream to survive, how music stayed with her quietly in the background of her life. When she finished, Mr. Langford nodded slowly. "That explains the emotion in your playing," he said. "Most trained pianists know how to play the right notes, but very few know how to make people feel something. You have that gift." Emma blinked in surprise. "Do you really think I can do something with it?" He smiled gently. "I know you can, but you must believe." At first, that sentence stayed with her long after the meeting ended. In the days that followed, the world began to notice her. More invitations arrived, small concerts, interviews, even a podcast about unknown musical talents. One email came from a music label offering her a chance to record her own album. Another came from her old music school. The director wrote, "We saw your video. We'd like to offer you a full scholarship to complete your studies. You wish to return." Emma stared at that message for a long time. Part of her was thrilled, but part of her was scared. Going back meant facing her old dreams, her old pain, and the fear of failing again. She talked to Luke about it. He looked at her and said, "You always told me to never give up on what I love. Now it's your turn." That night, she sat down. At her keyboard, which now felt smaller and older than ever, she placed her fingers on the keys and began to play a song she had written herself. Something new, something personal. As the notes filled the room, she realized she had already taken the first step. Her life was changing, not just on the outside, but inside her heart too. She wasn't just reacting to life anymore. She was choosing it. And that choice was powerful. Back at the club, things had changed too. The staff treated her differently. Some looked at her with respect, others with envy. A few were distant. Maybe uncomfortable that someone from their group had risen so suddenly, but Emma didn't let it get to her. She still smiled, still helped where she could. She hadn't forgotten where she came from. Even some of the club members who once ignored her now greeted her warmly. They asked her about her next performance, congratulated her, and even asked for photos. Emma found it both strange and funny. The same people who barely saw her now looked at her as someone special. But Emma remained grounded. She continued to help her brother with homework, made dinner at home, and still cleaned her apartment herself. Fame didn't change her heart. It only reminded her that she had more to offer than she ever realized. In the middle of all this, Emma received a letter in the mail. It had no return address. Inside was a handwritten note. "You reminded me what real music sounds like. Never stop playing. The world needs your sound." There was no name, just a small sketch of a grand piano in the corner. Emma held the letter to her chest, tears forming in her eyes. She didn't know who sent it, but she knew it meant something important. She had stepped up to a piano as a frightened girl trying to help during an emergency. She had left the stage as a rising star, but more importantly, she had found herself again. Her music was no longer hidden in a small apartment. It was now touching hearts, inspiring people, and opening doors she never thought she could walk through. Emma was no longer just a waitress. She was becoming who she was always meant to be. And this was only the beginning of a new and beautiful journey. Emma's life had changed so much that sometimes she hardly recognized it. The shy waitress who once moved quietly through the busy country club was now a rising star in the music world. But no matter how many new doors opened for her, she stayed, humble and grounded. She remembered the long nights when music was only her secret comfort, the moments when she thought her dreams had died. And she never forgot the people who helped her along the way, the manager who believed in her, the brother who loved her, and the music teacher who never gave up on her. Her first big concert after the gala was at a famous concert hall downtown. It was a chilly evening, and the hall was packed with people critics, music lovers, journalists, and even some of the wealthy club members who had once ignored her. They all came to see the waitress who could play like a queen. A mix of nerves and excitement as she stepped onto the stage, the spotlight warm on her face. She sat down at the grand piano and took a deep breath. Her fingers touched the keys gently, and then the music began. She played with passion and grace, every note telling a story. She chose a mix of classical pieces and her own original songs. Her music was full of emotions, sometimes soft and tender, sometimes powerful and bold. The audience was silent, hanging on every sound. When the last note faded, the crowd erupted into applause. People stood up, cheering and clapping. Emma stood, bowed deeply, and smiled. She could hardly believe she had come this far. The years of hard work, sacrifice, and doubt had led her to this moment. She wasn't just a waitress anymore. She was a true artist, shining brightly in her own right. After the concert, Emma was approached by a famous music producer. He told her that he wanted to help her record an album and share her music with the world. Emma was thrilled, but also careful. She wanted to stay true to herself and her story. She didn't want fame just for the sake of it. She wanted her music to mean something, to touch hearts the way it had touched hers. She accepted the offer and spent the next few months recording in a small, cozy studio. The sessions were long and sometimes tiring, but Emma loved every minute. She poured her soul into every song, telling her story through melody and lyrics. When the album was finally released, it was met with praise from critics and fans alike. People called it honest, beautiful, and inspiring. Emma also continued teaching piano lessons to children and teenagers in her neighborhood. She loved sharing her gift with others, especially those who, like her, dreamed quietly and waited for their chance. Teaching reminded her of why she started playing music: to connect, to heal, and to bring joy. Despite her rising fame, Emma stayed close to the country club where her journey began. The staff welcomed her warmly now, proud to have been part of her story. She still helped out sometimes, especially during busy events, not because she needed to, but because it kept her connected to her roots. The club wasn't just a workplace, it was a part of her life that shaped who she had become. One afternoon, while helping set up for a special dinner, Emma noticed a young girl nervously standing near the grand piano. The girl looked hesitant, unsure of herself. Emma walked over and smiled gently. "Would you like to play?" she asked. The girl nodded shyly. Emma sat beside her and guided her hands over the keys. As the girl played her first notes, Emma saw the same spark she had once felt. She remembered the kindness and patience her teachers showed her. In that moment, Emma realized her journey wasn't just about her success. It was about inspiring the next generation, about lifting others up the way she had been lifted. Emma's story became known far beyond the city. News outlets, magazines, and television shows featured her story, the waitress who stepped up to the piano and changed her life. People were inspired by her courage, her talent, and her humility. She became a symbol of hope for anyone who had dreams but felt trapped by life's hardships. Through it all, Emma never lost sight of what truly mattered. Her family remained her anchor, especially her brother Luke, who had grown into a confident young man thanks to her support. They celebrated every milestone together, sharing laughter and dreams. Emma knew her journey wasn't over. There would be challenges ahead, new fears to face, and mountains to climb, but she also knew she was ready. She had found her voice, her strength, and her purpose. She had learned that sometimes the most unexpected moments, like stepping up to a piano in a crowded room, could change everything. And so, Emma played on, not for fame or fortune, but because music was who she was. Her story was a reminder to the world that talent and passion could be hidden anywhere, event in a quiet waitress who dared to dream. When that dream was finally shared, it could light up the world. Emma's journey had been a remarkable one. From a quiet waitress serving coffee in a fancy country club to a celebrated pianist playing on grand stages, her life had changed in ways she never imagined. But even as she reached new heights, she stayed true to herself and her humble beginnings. After the success of her first album and the positive response from concerts and the media, Emma began to receive invitations from around the world. Music festivals, charity events, and even international tours were offered to her. Each invitation was exciting, but also a bit overwhelming. Traveling far from home, performing for new audiences, and managing her growing fame was not easy. Sometimes she missed the quiet nights at home, the simple joy of playing music just for herself. One day, Emma received a letter from a prestigious music academy, the same one she had to leave years ago. They invited her to return, to finish her formal education with a full scholarship. It was a chance to complete what she started, to learn more, and to grow her talent even further. Emma thought long and hard about it. Returning to school meant changing her routine, leaving her brother, and stepping into a world she had once left behind. But deep down, she knew it was the right choice. Her family and friends supported her decision. Luke, now a teenager, was proud of his sister. "You've already shown everyone how strong you are," he said. "Now go show them how talented you are too." With their encouragement, Emma packed her bags and went back to the academy. The days at the academy were challenging but rewarding. She met new teachers who helped her improve technique, music theory, and performance skills. She studied hard, practiced longer, and connected with other young musicians who shared her passion. The environment was competitive but also inspiring. Emma realized she was no longer the lost girl who had quit music out of necessity. She was a dedicated student and artist ready to grow. Despite her busy schedule, Emma never forgot her roots. She kept teaching piano lessons on weekends to children in her neighborhood, especially those who couldn't afford private lessons. She knew firsthand how important support and encouragement could be. Sharing her knowledge and passion gave her joy and reminded her why she loved music so much. At the same time, Emma continued performing whenever she could. She played in small community events and large concert halls alike, always giving her best. Her reputation grew steadily, and more people came to know her music and her story. But fame and success brought challenges too. Not everyone believed in her, and some people doubted her ability to keep up with the professional musicians who had studied all their lives without interruption. Emma faced criticism and pressure to conform to certain styles or trends. She sometimes felt torn between staying true to her unique voice and meeting expectations. During these moments, Emma would think back to the nights when music was her secret escape. She remembered the feeling of playing alone in her small apartment, without judgment or audience. Those memories helped her stay grounded. She decided that no matter what, her music had to come from her heart. That authenticity was what made her special. One of the most important lessons Emma learned was about balance. She found ways to manage her time between school, performances, family, and rest. She set boundaries to protect her mental and physical health. She sought advice from mentors and surrounded herself with people who cared about her as a person, not just a musician. Luke continued to grow and pursue his own dreams. Emma supported him every step of the way, proud to see him become confident and independent. Their bond remained strong, a source of comfort amid the busy and sometimes stressful world they lived in. Emma's story inspired many. She was invited to speak at schools, community centers, and conferences, sharing her journey and encouraging others to never give up on their dreams. She talked openly about the struggles she faced, loss, fear, doubt, and how music helped her heal and find purpose. People admired her honesty and courage. Her success also opened doors for charity work. Emma became involved in programs that provided music education and instruments to underprivileged children. She believed that everyone deserved the chance to discover their talents and express themselves, just as she had. Years passed, and Emma's career blossomed. She recorded several albums, toured internationally, and won awards for her compositions and performances. Despite all the applause and recognition, she remained humble. She remembered the little girl who once thought her dreams were over, and the waitress who dared to take a chance. Emma continued to create music that touched hearts, melodies that told stories of hope, resilience, love, and loss. She believed that music was a universal language, capable of bringing people together and making the world a better place. One quiet evening, after a long day of rehearsals, Emma sat at her piano at home. The room was warm, filled with soft light and the scent of flowers. She began to play a new piece, a song about her journey, her family, and the power of never giving up. As the notes flowed through the air, she felt peace and gratitude. Emma knew her path had not been easy, but it was worth every step. She had found her voice and used it to inspire others. Her story was proof that sometimes the most unexpected moments could change everything, and that dreams, no matter how far away, could come true with courage and heart. And so, as Emma played on her music, a light in the world, a gift shared from one soul to another.